It was Hillary Clinton earlier blaming coal companies going bankrupt, and there's been a lot of them on the markets. Now, yesterday, the U.S. Justice Department dismissed the Murray energy lawsuit that held up President Obama's Clean Air Act. Obama, of course, his agenda has always been to crush coal, and let's face it, he has succeeded. In 2008, coal was responsible for almost 50% of electricity. Last year, it was down to just 33%. And the bankruptcies, you're talking about amazing companies, amazing stocks. Look at those charts, guys. Arch Coal, Patriot, James River, Walter, Alpha Natural Resources, and of course with those bankruptcies, thousands, tens of thousands of jobs. Joining me now to discuss, Eric Guster, Tom Borelli, and Brenberg. Tom, you have been on this more than anybody else. Before I'll let the professor first talk about the economic angle, because I think Eric is going to run a refute what you say. Let's just talk about the economic angle of this first, because electricity prices, as President Obama promised, have gone to a record. Coal companies have gone bankrupt, and thousands of people have lost their jobs. A lot of this has to be sourced back to the fact that the Obama administration made it really tough to use coal in this country. Yeah, absolutely. You've seen 30,000 jobs wiped out since 2009. You've seen $30 billion in market cap wiped out. That's pensions, that's retirement funds, and absolutely regulation plays a huge role in this. The market, it's a market issue. Market actors look ahead and they say, coal is going to die. We're not going to put our capital here. That's killing these businesses. Right. So in other words, she was able, Tom, to play a little loose and fancy with this, and I will admit, there's a natural gas component to this, too, which is the miracle of fracking that's played a role, but only it was expounded upon because you were the guy who's pointed out when this was happening that this is all going to happen.
Well, Charles, it was the driving force was the regulations. And go to the videotape. Before President Obama was president, he promised to raise energy prices, make them skyrocket, and he talked about bankruptcies. It's a slew of regulations. The clean buffer rule, the utility MAC rule, the cross air pollution rule, ozone rule. They keep coming, made it too expensive to use coal. And look at Arch Coal's bankruptcy statement. They said 400 coal-fired power plants were closed because of EPA regulations, not the market. The market will evolve slowly. Maybe this would have happened anyway, but the boot of government is what's driving these poor people out of their jobs, and it just shows how cruel Democrat policies are.
Eric, how does Hillary, and she struggled yesterday to explain this. Now, I will say, in all fairness, if you play that tape longer, she does say that they feel it's incumbent upon them to find these people jobs, but she seemed to take a certain amount of glee in putting folks out of work.
Well, she didn't take glee at all. She didn't take glee in putting people out of work. What she was talking about is trying to provide for clean energy. And what the government has to do is to come in, retrain these workers so that they can find jobs. And just like what Tom said, a lot of people became unemployed, but this is a changing time where people want clean energy. We want to make sure that we're good citizens of this earth, but we have a responsibility to make sure we take these people, retrain them, give them benefits where they know how to do this.
Let's take people who are making $60,000 a year, who are paying into the system. Let's put them on the bankrupt. Let's put them on the unemployment line, and then let's use federal dollars to retrain them. How twisted is that? That's Democrat liberal policy.
That is taking care of people.
No, it's not.
It is taking care of people. Retraining people.
Did you see those poor people who are out of jobs?
Oh, absolutely.
By the boot of government.
That is why.
That's
why it's important.
And she's going after fracking next. Talk about clean energy. She's going after fracking next.
No, that is why it's important for us to retrain people.
$1 billion in her pocket.
It's just like the automobile industry, where we went to computerized industry in order to do that. We retrain people to do those things.
But here's the thing, though, Professor, to Tom's point, though, I think we saw the evolution. We know things evolve, and I think if you allowed the natural evolution of this, it would have happened over maybe 2 decades. But the fact that it was crammed in, artificially mandated, it has left a trail of broken bodies and broken spirits and a lot of people who don't have any hope.
Look, change is going to happen in the marketplace. Certainly the natural gas revolution is going to have an impact, no question. But look, the energy future of the globe is actually still in coal. If you look at China, electricity usage is going to triple over the next 20 years, and that's going to be fueled by coal. Same thing in India. The U.S. wants to be positioned to have a leadership role there. You can't kill the industry and expect to have leadership there. You can't kill the industry and expect to have a transition to clean energy.
Also,
you have to have some
let's also look at the how. President Obama said he wanted cap-and-trade legislation. Congress did not approve it because of the will of the people. He went the back door, and he's using the executive branch through the EPA to do this. None of these people had to say, because we have these bureaucrats who just don't care.
Eric, the idea that we want clean air, some of these rules, I mean, the particles and the dust and some of the things that they're going, it's so minute. It really is. And I see the administration say, well, this will stop 3,900 more deaths a year or 30,000 asthma cases a year. It just seems like real flimsy science to back up an agenda based on their green ideology and nothing else. No compassion.
As a civil trial lawyer, let me tell you, when you look into the eyes of someone who is dying from inhaling these inhalants and these harmful chemicals, it's not a very slim, very narrow issue.
You're from Birmingham, right?
I'm from Alabama. We've had a lot of issues.
Big coal area.
Absolutely.
I have a lot of relatives in Birmingham, uncles who work there, and yeah, they're industrial hazards. But the difference between them putting their kids to college and their kids having a life of poverty. So we understand where these people are, but how about looking, Tom, someone in the eyes and say, I took your job because the greenies asked me to.
Because of regulations. Exactly.
Yeah, but this is over-regulation. This is bankrupting by design, by the boot of government. Go to the videotape.
When you go into these areas
coal companies.
When you go into these areas where it is impacting the environment and impacting people's lungs and making them have cancer.
And how many people?
One second, guys.
How many people are oxycontin because they don't have?
One second, guys. 1 second. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. Over 50 years ago, Lyndon Johnson started the war on poverty. Where did he start it? A walking tour of Appalachia. So if the Democrats had a game plan to make this transition and give these poor people better jobs, they had 50 years to do it. Now Hillary's talking about some flimsy, phony retraining program. What do these families do tomorrow?
That is why, and I agree with one small point, that we have to make sure that we give these people jobs, and that's part of what the government has to do. Make sure that
jobs.
Well, that is part of it, because when we give these people opportunities, then they can transition into another job that is equally
Unfortunately,
paying.
guys, at this very, very moment, though, we have a lot of people who are hopeless, and whoever had this grand scheme botched it big time. Thanks a lot. Very spirited. Appreciate it.